Welcome to TradeTheMBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 13th. It's not Friday, it's a Monday, so that's okay. It was interesting because we dipped below that 50% on Friday and then had a strong reversal off of it. We'd already seen that we'd seen some steel movement coming through, but this broader dip of the red DOC means that even pops within that aren't going to survive, particularly when you have, in this particular case, I've mentioned this before, anytime they have that gold below blue on a shakeout, no pump is going to survive. It just doesn't work out. It's an indication of broader selling going in. We're still not below the red line, so we haven't reached what you would call an oversold configuration. We talked about being in this range where we filled in this low of the positive extreme down in the 40s. But knew that it could extend a little bit beyond that because we had some other more intraday algorithm levels that we saw on like the 5K chart that gave a little bit broader range, and we'll see those in just a little bit. But we're right at that key threshold where you still, until that steel crosses above cyan from a positive standpoint, and or you get green moving above with the orange continuing to dip, you're still in a sell configuration. And we're obviously starting down significantly, so but down relative to right within the same ranges that we've been talking about. So none of this is all that shocking, though, with some very nice intraday movement. This little strong pop back of the euro has been off that rising DOC red that we had seen going forward. Still, this is what we're looking for, is the cross. This should present a little bit more weakness now coming off of it with the steel dipping below. Green is already under it. We just expect now the red to roll over below the 7.5. That would be more of this range that we're looking for. The top side of it was the 50% that we were talking about from the last dip, coming back right here. It's trying to repeat that. If it does a slightly lower high, then we may even break into a lower range, potentially possible, which would be interesting. Not expecting that, but it's within the realm of possibility. Gold, and also building strongly, ready for a breakout move at this particular point. Shakeout's almost positive. If we go the opposite direction, though, we're going to break into lower lows. Whoa, that's quite a mess. That's intraday chart. We can expand this because we don't need all that data. Well, we'll just get the overall view now because this really just represents what was happening. We ended up with these soft little buy signals that just kind of petered out pretty quickly, but they kept building, and then we ended up with a nice sell signal with pretty weak shakeout readings overall, and that led to a really extended move down to this 2830 algo that we'd had from before, and we just supported right off that cleanly, and then we ended up with some strong shakeout in red with significant enough crossover. It happened as early as over here before the blue came in, but was also right at positive extremes. Let me go ahead and expand this down because it's a little hard to see that. There we go, and you can see, so we got the red, yellow came in early on this. You know it wasn't going to last, but then we were waiting for this next new wave. That one started, and all that did was produce more sideways action, but you ended up with this rising gold configuration, which just kept getting better and better, and each time it improved. Shakeout then went positive early on, right around what was the dip to the overall 50, which, talk about a conjunction of contracting here of the Morganacci lines. I mean, we shrunk to this narrowest range, which really wasn't any different than, actually slightly below what the 23% was from back over here at the original signal, which we're right in this range right here, and so that 50% really became that same configuration number, and then boom, we skyrocketed. Now you could look at this and say, okay, hey, but we ended up with a couple of DOC spreads. Not really. Magenta well above 15 over there. The secondary one, same situation, though the shakeout drop-off was dramatic. Usually at those particular points, I'm looking for that first turnaround because you know that's going to be the next pop. I sometimes will think that I'm going to get close to the 50%. It just depends on the steel in this case. In this case, it was a straight up nonstop. That's a pretty clear sign that you're not going to get a little bit more of that sideways fluctuation. And sure enough, that was correct. And it popped right back up into that 2780. We had 2880 was our top side, so it broke out of that top side range and then produced, and I marked it in red in this case, the DOC spread, because you moved above 13.5. Well, you know this is not sustainable, so you know there's going to be a reset in it. The problem is with this level, you're guessing that you're going to end up with some kind of dip that's going to return. So easy enough to go ahead and take that as soon as you start to break down right here, much earlier, even before you get a DOC spread. You just got to know that as soon as you get this crossover and a movement towards that cyan, it's going to turn around. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, it's just like a pre-warning. It just lets you know if at any point the steel had faded in here or the orange had turned around beforehand, you know that you're probably not going to get it. But what you're looking at is getting back towards the highs without reaching a shakeout that's anywhere near it, which indicates that you just don't have the actual buyer support, and then you end up with this DOC spread that takes place right here that again has the steel coming from above down below and the crossover points, and boom, you got to take that one. It's a little early because you don't have the shakeout dip, and even if you wait to the next bar, it's fine too. You still get a little movement against you, but see, this is what protects you against this kind of thing, where you get the gap down, because the signal was already short because of the situation that had developed, where you had already began to fade, and this was their attempt at faking people out. But the DOC reading was pretty clear that lower was expected. Now, how much lower? Now, were you expecting it to break all the way there? Well, we were looking for positive extreme retrace coming all the way back to, well, right about here, 41 and a half. It didn't quite reach it. We made to 45, which would have been closer to this positive extreme right here. So it went all the way back and filled in every single one of them beautifully. I'm gonna love it when it does that. It's just so clean. As always, though, I will continue to put things up as they develop. I don't know that we're out of the woods yet here. We're in a small buy configuration at this particular moment, but without a steel reset, I don't think it survives. So we may end up getting to that low retest. We'll talk again later, and I will put up relevant items on the Skype chat. Trade well.